In this part of the lesson, we're going to create a ring, and using some of our newly learned wireframe commands, we're going to inlay some text into this ring. So let's create a new part file. We're going to use a basic closed solitaire template. Let's name our part. Okay, we're in our part level. We have our template history contained in these folders. Okay, we have our template. Our default ring size is a 7, a US 7. Okay, 17.3 millimeters diameter. Okay, this is our default ring size. We can change it in here. Left clicking, apply. Okay, we can check our ring size by activating the dimensions of our template. In here, right clicking on the sketch, the template sketch, show dimensions. Okay, and we can see our ring diameter here, 18.10, and that being our size 8. We can also view our dimensions for the whole part by showing our dimensions here. Okay, so let's insert some ring shanks. In the Design, Sketches and Ring ribbon tab, left click on our ring shanks icon. Okay, let's navigate in our carousel to a ring shank we like. In this case, I'm going to use the half round ring shank sketch with a comfort fit. There's this arc down here to give a more comfortable fit on the ring finger. We're going to place this sketch on our top datum, our 12 o'clock datum, and our 6 o'clock datum. We're going to confirm the operation. Okay, now we want to change the dimensions of the sketch a little. Okay, so we can do this in our 3D environment. We're able to see our dimensions. If we cannot see our dimensions, we can activate or deactivate them by right clicking on the operation in the History Manager, left clicking the show/hide dimension icon. Okay, let's change our entity filter to dimension. Let's change the height above the comfort fit of this. We'll give it a value of 1.5. Okay, our comfort fit height is 0.5 millimeters. Let's change the width. Give it a value of 4. Okay, now let's modify our bottom ring shank sketch. Now these are sketches, so we can enter into their sketching environment by double clicking on them or right clicking, redefining it. Okay, by double clicking, come into a sketch environment and we can make our changes here. We'll have the same effect, modify the values. Let's give this a value of 3 width. Then we exit the environment, sketching environment, back into our part level. Okay, so now let's do a drive curve loft of our sketches around our template. So drive curve loft in the shape tab. Okay, our drive curve, we're going to pick a template curve. Okay, and we have many different curves. We have sketches we can pick, and we can have a curve list. So our template is made up of different curves, sketches, and curve list, and each will have a specific function. For example, if we set our entity filter onto curve, and we pick this 1/2 curve, and pick our profiles, change our entity filter onto sketch, picking our profiles. Remember, pick them at the same point on each profile. Okay, you see here we'll have a half turn. Okay, so we want a full rotation, a complete ring shank. So we can change our driving curve. Okay, we could pick the template sketch. but usually we will want to use the curve list. Okay, and you can see with this yellow arrow that our different curves sketches have different starting points. Okay, and the importance of this we will see in just a moment. Okay, so let's start off by picking the curve list. We want to have no end caps. We are forming a closed shape, so we make sure we have no end caps, and we will not keep the curves. Confirm the operation. Okay, here is our lofted ring shank. Now maybe we want to make this slightly wider. Okay, we activate our dimensions, but we're unable to see the dimension of the ring shank. This is because we did not opt to keep our curves when we performed the drive curve loft. Okay, so we could go back into the loft, redefine it, and keep our curves. Alternatively, we could right click our sketch, show the dimensions. Okay, but this is going to reactivate our sketch, and maybe we don't want to see it. So an alternative method is to come into your operation in the history manager, right click on it, navigate to open/close. This will open up our operation, and then we will get our dimensions. We'll see our dimensions in there. We can right click on the dimension we want to change, edit, let's crank it up to a 5, okay, and there you go. Our ring shank is updated with the new dimension, and our sketch is still hidden. Okay, so now let's insert a sketch. Right click, insert sketch, on this center gem datum, left click, make sure we use centroid defined by plane. In this case it actually doesn't matter. Confirm. Okay, now we're going to insert some text. Okay, so we're going to use the ready sketch text. Left click, this brings up our options panel. Our origin, let's just set it at the center for now. Okay, and let's type our text. Okay, so we're going to reduce the size of this. Let's bring it down. Okay, now our aim with this text is to inlay it into our ring. Now, in order to perform an inlay, we need to have good curves that are connected well. Let's change it to a bold. Okay, and you can see here with this font, this default font, we have some self-intersections. Okay, we could confirm the operation, explode our text, and come in and trim these out. But this font is just not very reliable, so I recommend using the default Arial font. Okay, just plain Arial, or Arial Black is another good one. So the Arial font, you should not have so many issues with this. It is a good one to use. Okay, let's increase our size a little bit. Let's say 2.25 millimeters. This size relates to the height. Okay, it's 2.25 millimeters. Okay, now let's reposition our text. Okay, we want it to be around the middle here. Left click to place it. Confirm the operation, and there we have our text. Exit back into our part level. Now, when we inlay, the curves that we wish to inlay have to be coincident on a face. They have to be lying on that face. So our goal now is to get this text to lay on this face. Okay, and we could do this if we come into our wireframe tab by using a project to face. We could project our sketch onto the face. So let's try it. Pick our curves, we'll pick the sketch, our face, this face. Okay, and we're getting quite a small projection there. Let's define our direction, coming down, so that's the negative Z direction. Okay, and we're getting a nicer preview here. Okay, and as you'll see, we're also getting a projection at the bottom because this face extends the entire way around. Okay, we can ignore this for now. We can always erase the curves on the bottom later. So let's confirm this operation. And there we have projected our text onto the surface. Okay, now the projection, if we go back into it, it's a straight down projection, okay, projecting it straight down. Okay, now we can perform an inlay on these curves because they're lying on our surface. So in the Shape ribbon tab, under here, under the merge, we have our inlay command. Left click our inlay, pick our face, we then pick our curves. Set our entity filter onto curve, and we're going to pick all of our text curves. Okay, so we don't want to have to pick them one by one, so we're going to use our shift pick. The shift pick is our quick chain pick. It's going to pick all of the curves that are in a single chain, that are connected with one another. So holding down the shift button, left click, keep holding down the shift. So we're holding down the shift key, just left clicking, make sure we pick all of our curves, like so. And now we're going to give an offset, let's set it to a negative 0.3. Okay, so we're going to inlay our curves. Confirm the operation. And there we have our inlay. Okay. Now using our projection, you can see that our Y is a little bit funny here. And if we were to reduce the size of our ring, let's say to a 5, okay, it's only going to get worse. Okay, this is because we are projecting our sketch down onto the surface. Okay, it's funny looking Y. Okay, so there is a different approach we can take. Instead of projecting our text onto the surface, we can use our wrap tool. Okay, so let's take our history back to before the project. Going to delete the project and the inlay. Let's save our work first of all. Now in the wireframe tab, in this drop down menu we have our wrap on face. Now I didn't show you this in the previous part of the lesson, okay, because it's slightly more complicated, but I will show you it here now. So our wrap on face, instead of projecting down onto a surface, we are wrapping our sketch on that surface. Okay, so we'll keep the dimensions of the geometry of our sketch. So we pick our sketch, left click, pick our face, and then we are prompted to pick an origin. Okay, we can pick an origin for our text. Now your text may be coming in by default rotated, okay, like this, because it is aligning itself with the UV system of the face. So we can simply rotate our text, our sketch. Okay, we want to rotate it 270 degrees, 3/4 of a turn. Okay, so there is our text wrap, our sketch wrap. Okay, you can see that our text is all being cut off at this point, at this line. Okay, this happens because we have what is called a seam in our shape. Every shape, every face has a start point and an end point. And this text, this wrap on face, is not good at crossing these seams. Okay, so we can change the location of this seam in the following way. Cancel out of this operation. We're going to edit our loft. Right click, redefine. Now the seam happens at this top section because our curve has a starting point at this top section as well, for 12 o'clock. So if we change our curve selection, instead of picking the curve list, we pick the template sketch, which has a starting point at the side here, our seam will be at the 3 o'clock position, not the 12 o'clock position, and confirm the operation. Okay, now our seam will not be at the top. Now instead of doing this, say we don't have the template sketch available, we could simply create our own path for the loft to be lofted about. Okay, so let's do that. We're going to create a circle. Let's define a 2-point defining method. Okay, so our circle start point will be at our first point. Let's set our input options, our snapping tool, to critical, so that we snap to this datum center. Left click. Okay, and then our end point, or our second point I should say, will snap to this datum. We're then going to align with the front plane. Okay, and you can see our circle aligning with that plane. Let's change our line color to green so it's a bit more obvious. We confirm the operation. Our circle will have a start point down here where we want it to be. Okay, so now we can redo our loft. Okay, our drive curve, if we unpick, we want to pick the curve that we just created, this green curve. Now you see we're having trouble picking this curve. This is because we have multiple curves located on top of each other. Okay, our entities are on top of one another. If we're in this situation having difficulty picking the right entity, we can use the Alt key. This is going to filter between our entities that are on top of each other. If we find ourselves picking between entities like this, if we hold down the Alt key, we're going to be getting a specific entity pick. Okay, so holding down the Alt key allows us to pick between entities that are on top of each other. If say we have 3 entities on top of each other, we can filter further through these entities by holding down the Control key as well. Okay, a combination of these will allow us to pick between entities that are on top of one another. Okay, so holding down the Alt key, I'm picking the circle that I created with the start point where I want it to be, so that when I confirm the operation, okay, we can't see the seam, but our seam is going to be at this 3 o'clock position. We can replay our sketch. We're then going to redo our wrap on face command, select the sketch, the face, and the origin. Okay, make sure our entity filter is on face, so we can pick the face. And you see we no longer have a seam. Okay, so we can place our text on here. But let's say we want to get a very specific pick. We want it to be exactly in the middle here. Well, we can use our picking options, okay? Our picking tools. To get a nice specific pick, I can use my intersection curve, okay? I want a curve, an intersection curve, where this face intersects with this datum, the side datum. Confirm. Okay, and there you see we have a curve, our intersection curve. Now when I use my wrap on face, pick my sketch, my face, the origin, I'm going to do a right click, middle of this curve, clicking on the curve, it's throwing in our point at the middle of that curve. Okay, so we're locked in to that point. So if we make changes to the size of our ring shank, our text is always going to be thrown in at that point. Confirm. Okay, I'm going to change my line color back to black. I'm going to erase this curve. Okay, it has served its purpose. Okay, and now you can see that this Y is not so skewed. We can do our inlay, our curves, pick our face. We're going to shift pick, chain pick, our curves an offset of negative 0.3, confirm. There's our inlay with a wrapped sketch, okay, and our Y, you can see it's much better now. Okay, so let's redefine last. How about we want an emboss? Let's give it an emboss of 0.4 millimeters. Okay, we can also add a draft to our emboss. Let's draft it, and mid-draft is usually the best option. Let's give it a 20-degree draft. You can see the draft on our text. Okay, so we now have an emboss for our text. It is protruding. Okay, we can change our ring size because we have linked it all up. So our ring should have no trouble updating to a different ring size. Okay, so how about we want to have our embossed text sat down in a channel? Well, there are various ways we can make channels, and I'll show you one of those methods now. Okay, so we could come back in our history to after our text sketch. Okay, we can insert a new sketch on the same datum. Okay, and then let's draw a rectangle around our text. So let's give it a whole width of 17, and we'll give it a height of 3.5. So this is wrapping our text. Exit. Okay, now before we wrap our text, we're going to wrap our box. So let's play that wire. Select wrap on face. Left click on the rectangle sketch. Pick our face. Our origin is going to be the middle of this line. Confirm the operation. Okay, and now we're going to erase this curve. Let's inlay our box curves to create a channel. Let's inlay a negative 0.5. We will have a zero draft. Okay, now let's create that line again. This time we're creating it with this face and the side datum. Now we can try and play our wrap again of the text, except we are now wrapping to a new face and with a different line. So when we play it, it's going to fail. So we can edit that wrap. Our sketch is still defined. Our face has been defined correctly. Our origin is probably what is throwing off this command. So we can repick our curve. Confirm the operation. Okay, so instead of deleting all of our operations, they may still be salvageable. Okay, obviously this erase of our previous curve is not going to work because we have already erased it here. So if we edit it, we can pick our other curve, middle click, and that erase will now be performed on that curve. Now let's see if our inlay will work. And it has, it's performed well. Okay, so here we go. We have our embossed lettering within an inlaid channel. Okay, let's add a nice chamfer to these edges. 5 setback is going to be too large. Let's set it at 0.2 to begin with. Pick our edges. Okay, we're creating here what you might call a bright cut. Let's increase the value. Okay, 0.4 seems good. Okay, we can confirm the operation and press enter to do that. So there we have our embossed text with a draft in our inlaid channel. Okay, so let's save, and now we're going to change our ring size and see if it is all linked up. So let's drop it down to 4. Okay, you see all of our lettering, it updates to our ring size. Let's really crank it up to our men's size. There you go. It all updates. Now this is how we want to do our designing, so that we can come in and customize it once it is done without having to sift through our history and redo operations. Okay, some software programs do not even have a history like this, so it is impossible to even build a design that is so customizable. Okay, so let's drop it down to our default 7. And now we're going to move into the Visualize tab, and let's give our ring a texture. Set our entity filter onto shape. Okay, now you see when we're hovering our cursor over our shape, it's not highlighting and we're not able to pick it. Okay, so if this ever happens and you find yourself unable to pick something you want, okay, there could be a few reasons for this. Maybe you have already got something picked, or you're already in an operation that you're not aware of. So if we want to make sure that we've not got anything picked, we come into our Utilities drop down menu, left click on Unhighlight All. Okay, and then you can see we should be able to pick our shape again. Okay, it might be the case that sometimes you find yourself with entities highlighted and you can't seem to be able to deselect them. Okay, use the same Unhighlight All command. Okay, so let's pick our ring. Let's then give it a texture. Up here we have many to choose from. Now we're going to render it using our quick live render. Okay, so we have a nice image there. Very quick render of our ring. Okay, we could place a live rendering studio at our origin to produce a nicer render. Okay, takes a bit more time. Now you see that our rendering studio is getting in the way of our view. Okay, so our rendering studio is brought in as a component, so we can merge this component, left click, as a base. Okay, this turns these into shapes, and now we can move them like any shape. We can move them out of the way. Okay, the purpose of these screens is to throw on a nice shadow or light reflection onto our ring or our design when we are rendering it. Okay, so it's still in the way a bit. Let's move it back a bit. Okay, so you can see these dark shadows. These are being thrown on by those side panels. Okay, and if we change the color of these, set out the live render, let's control pick them all. You see they're currently black on this side, so that's throwing that black onto our ring. So maybe we can soften it up a bit, change them to a dark grey. My mistake, I changed the line color there. Ooh, control pick them again. Okay, we change them to a dark grey instead of the black, and let's see what effect this has. Okay, it softens that shadow up a bit. Okay, so you can see our live render work, how it is working, and it takes a bit of time with this studio there. Okay, if you want to speed up your render, minimize your screen, have a smaller view of your design, and it's going to render much faster. So that's a pretty good render for its speed. And don't forget that this is a free add-on to JCD Lite. So you may have the option to purchase a Thea rendering engine as an add-on to your JCD Lite software package. Okay, and with the Thea rendering engine you can get really incredible results, very realistic renderings of your designs.